So our next speaker is Adam McWey. He joined the Coachella Valley Water District in 2017. He is currently the conservation manager for Coachella Valley Water District and leads the water management team in their efforts to educate and empower the community to conserve water efficiently and effectively while developing innovative tools and programs that promote a sustainable water future. Please welcome Adam.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Oh, this. Okay, this one's the one. Okay, so yes, thank you everyone for being here today. My name's Adam McWey, conservation manager here at CVWD, and I'm going to go into a little more detail on our conservation programs, the district's budget-based rates and water budgets, and then also a couple of, like what Scott mentioned, some regulations that are going to impact the district going forward over the next several years. So real quick, just an overview of water management. These are kind of our primary functions. We administer all the district's rebate programs. Primarily, those are going to be all domestic rebates. We do, from time to time, receive grants that allow us to provide rebates for non-potable or golf courses for other programs. But those rebates are funded by the domestic rates, so that's why they're limited to domestic customers. And those are going to be for turf conversion, smart controllers. We have indoor rebates also for toilets or washing machines. So and then also, so that's the rebate programs. As Scott mentioned, the landscape ordinance, we adopted that back in, I believe, around 2008. And so we've been responsible for enforcing that through the plan check process. So any new developments, we receive and review those landscape plans, verify that the estimated water use is under the maximum allowable based on plant type, irrigation systems, and whatnot. And then we're also, as I mentioned, responsible for the domestic water budget. So we maintain a lot of that data that goes into calculating those monthly budgets, and I'll go into more detail on that later to hopefully clarify exactly what that formula is for both indoor and outdoor, and the differences between residential budgets versus maybe the budget for your irrigation meter or in commercial, such as maybe the clubhouse or something else. And then also water waste patrols. So there are mandatory water use restrictions that are always in place for limiting irrigation runoff, maybe not irrigating within 48 hours of rainfall, using a hose with an automatic shutoff. So we have water waste patrols. We'll if we see those issues, we'll first send a letter notifying the customer of that issue, work with the customer to try to correct it. And if there's no response or no corrections made, those can result in fines up to $2,000 a month. So that's kind of water management in a nutshell, overall what we cover. Big picture in just terms of water management, as Scott was mentioning, I'll skip to, you may have heard of SGMA. So that was a state adopted in 2014. That's the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. We are the exclusive groundwater sustainable agency, or GSA, over the aquifer exclusive to our service area. It does span other agencies, so we work in collaboration with those agencies on managing those subbasins. And as Scott mentioned, the key metric there is looking at the 20-year net change in what's been withdrawn. And so the 20-year average for those subbasins are positive. So over the 20-year period, every year they look at if you've drawn more or less, and over the 20 years it's positive or in balance. So that's the key metric that the state is looking at to demonstrate that the aquifer is being sustainably managed. And we have had our alternative plan to manage our aquifer approved by the Department of Water Resources. And just jumping back to that first bullet and tying it back to conservation. So back in 2002 is when the district adopted the first water management plan. And a big thing that came of that was creating those conservation programs that we have now, including budget-based rates. So that was identified in that plan to research the feasibility and implement. And so budget-based rates were implemented back in 2009. So kind of in creating that conservation programs, I guess you could say we kind of have four pillars of conservation. So we have those tiered rates that help customers identify what efficient water use is, helps notify if there is an issue, that you're triggered through your bill that there is an issue, and to contact us, and we're happy to help you in trying to correct those. Also, in the mid-90s, we began implementing dedicated irrigation meters. And so what that is your residential meter, your home meter, is technically a mixed use meter. It's one meter serving your home, and the water that's being applied is being used both inside and outside the home. So if there is an issue, you have to figure out whether it's inside, outside. But with dedicated irrigation meters, that meter is only serving your landscape. So right away, you know, if there is an issue, it's outside. So again, and using tiered rates with that, it provides the customers a target of efficient use. Since 2008, we began implementing our rebate programs. A lot of those started as partnerships with local cities. And those have been, we've always are looking at ways to increase the rebate offerings, evaluating new technologies. We've recently partnered with CalWEP the last couple of years. So CalWEP is the California Water Efficiency Partnership. And so that's who we distribute the Flume home water monitoring devices through, as well as the Ratio controllers. And they're always also expanding their offerings. So we're working with them to see if we want to continue to expand and pilot projects. So we look at, like, the Flume began as a pilot, you know. Another key thing, I guess, about the rebates is, as I mentioned earlier, those are funded through the domestic rates. So we fund those. So we have a control over the terms, conditions, limits, and things like that. It's not tied up in grant funding from another agency that may restrict or just makes it less flexible in maneuvering and adapting to changes. So when there was a drought, we were able to go to board, increase it to $3 a square foot, you know, right away. So it wasn't a process going back and forth with a granting agency on trying to change it. And then the last thing is conservation reviews and audits. So those are essentially the same thing, but for different customers. So for a conservation review, if you are a residential customer or having an issue trying to identify that leak or having a hard time staying within budget, staff will come out and to your property, walk the property with you, try to identify what the issue is, maybe help you identify whether it's an indoor or an outside issue, look at the controller with you, identify if there are too many runtimes on there. And so simplified audit is something similar that we offer to our large landscapes, where staff will come out again and meet with maybe the landscaper or somebody from the HOA to kind of walk the property and identify similar issues that may be occurring on the irrigation system. Let me see. Oh, so just to highlight, I guess, our rebate program. So since just when we had the last drought, increased our rebate funding. So since July 1st of 22, we paid more than, $18 million in rebates. That led to the removal of nearly 6 million square feet of turf in all, going back to 2010. We've paid over $45 million in rebates and taken out more than 26 million square feet of turf. So through those programs. Okay, so hopefully I'm able to clarify if there are questions on kind of in the water budget. So you may notice, if you are a residential customer, when you receive your bill, that it looks different, a little different from the bill the HOA may receive. And a big part of that is going to be because of the tier 1 and kind of how I mentioned before on mixed use meters. So for residential customers, your budget is going to be a combination of your indoor and your outdoor. So the indoor budget, outdoor budget, add together your total budget. For your irrigation meters that your HOA has, there's no indoor. For the clubhouse, the irrigation should be outside, so there should be no outdoor. But that budget is all going to be billed at tier 2. So the tier 1 rate is only available or only applicable to indoor residential use. So when you have that irrigation meter bill and it's all billed at tier 2, that's not a penalty. That's just the rate for the budget. For residential indoor, the calculation or assumption is that there's 4 people living in the home, needing about 50 gallons per person per day. And that equates to the 8 CCFs. So CCFs is the billing unit. That's centimeter cubic feet, 100 cubic feet. It equates to about 748 gallons. That varies a little bit on your bill because the reading period isn't always the same. So maybe we don't get to your meter to read it for 32 days, so that may jump up to 9. But so that's the indoor calculation for residential. Commercial properties that have an indoor budget, that's going to be based on the assumed impact to the sewer system. And so maybe based on how many restaurant tables or the kitchen size, there's a whole list of all kinds of impacts. They may calculate and add up to needing 3 equivalent dwelling units. And so you would multiply that 3 times 8, and the indoor budget is going to be 24. So that's going to be your indoor calculation. The outdoor is pretty straightforward, right? So that's the calculation, and I'll run through it, the top one real quick, and then we'll talk a little more in detail about it. So it's looking at that first pair of brackets is looking at the landscape area and the weather, essentially. And the second part is looking at the planting types, basically the landscape. The VCF is a conversion factor. So that's converting everything into our billing unit into CCFs. And then that last denominator there, the IE, is irrigation efficiency. So if we jump to the more visual version, so landscape area, that's going to be off. Okay, that's going to be based upon aerial mapping, or if it's a newer development, went through plan check, it's going to be per what was approved via the landscape plans. So that's the landscape area is going to be total square footage. That next image, I don't know if you can see it too clearly. So that's a CIMIS station, a weather station. We operate or have 4 of them throughout our service area. And they record daily ET data, which is weather data. And that's looking at solar radiation, wind, precipitation, humidity, and whatnot. So that's recorded daily. And then that last table, so all the billing weather data is coming from one of those 4 CIMIS stations. And what this table is showing is the factors. So there's essentially 4 microclimates within our service area. And you can tell just looking at the table, the weather station is located in zone 4. That's the factors 1. That's the weather. Those other 2, so zones 1, 2, and 3, are going to be areas within our service area that require slightly less water. So think of them as areas along the mountains that may have less wind, a little more shade, a little cooler. They require slightly less. And then zone 5 is maybe out along the 10, or in the wind belt, a lot windier, less shade from the mountains or cover, so it requires slightly more. There's a lot more information on the ET on our website. If you just go to our website in the little search bar, type ETO, you can pull up, we have available there all the ET data going back 2 years. And we also have the map that shows where all these microclimates are. And you can figure out which zone you are in. So that's the first part. That second, so the monthly plant factor. So that's where, I don't know if you've been informed or instructed, like the district assumes that your landscape is 50% turf, 50% low water use. And so that's where that assumption is built in the plant factor. And the reason it's changing throughout the course of the year is we're considering the transition from warm season turf to cool season turf. So that's why it's transitioning throughout the year. That 0.0083, that's that conversion factor I mentioned to put everything into our billing unit, CCFs, that shows up on your bill, what your water budget is. And that last part is irrigation efficiency. So that's looking at the rate of how much water your system puts out that's beneficially used by the plants. So I put this little picture because you can see the spray nozzle is near the curb, near some rocks. Obviously, some of that's going to overspray. Not every drop of water that comes out is going to be used by the plants. Some water is going to seep past the root zone of the plants. So it's not, you're never going to have 100%, but the assumption that we have is that the irrigation efficiency is going to be 70%. So 70% of the water being thrown out by your system is being used by the plantings. So that's something we can look at in an irrigation audit, So that's the calculation for the outdoor budget. So, and that's for, it's the same for all customer classes using domestic water. So this is how a residential outdoor budget is calculated, a dedicated irrigation meter budget is calculated. Any customer that with an outdoor budget receiving domestic water, this is how that's calculated. Okay, so a little thing that might come up with large landscapes is, unlike a home, you have more than 1 meter, right? So for large landscapes, the landscape area that's attributed to calculate that budget is based on the landscape area served by that meter. So if you have 10 meters and each meter is serving a designated specific area, the landscape area for the budget is going to be that specific area served by the meter. So for example, the picture on the left, assume maybe they have that community has just 2 meters. One is the green, one is the orange. The sum of each is going to be what's attributed to calculate the budget. But also what happens out there is the meters can be hydraulically looped. So essentially when the irrigation system turns on, it could be pulling water from either of those meters. So in that situation, we look at how many of the meters are looped, what area they're serving, and that grouping of meters is going to receive one budget for the area that group of meters is serving. So maybe in this other picture, maybe that large blue strip, maybe there's 3 meters serving it. So that those 3 hydraulically looped meters are going to, the landscape area is going to be the sum of that entire area. So we do offer also consolidated billing. So if you do have 10 meters, each one serving its specific area, we can group the bills together just so you receive one convenient bill for record keeping and ease of payment rather than 10 separate. We'll group them together, but just each meter will still have its own individual budget. So let's see. We've talked a little bit about our rebate programs. So like I said, we have outdoor and indoor rebates available. The big ones for outdoor is going to be turf conversion or turf removal. Please, if you are planning on any turf conversion project, let us know and apply and receive pre-approval before you start the project. If the turf has already been removed by the time we get there, you won't be eligible for the rebate. So staff, you must apply first. Staff will come out, inspect, verify the existence of the turf, and then you can proceed. So please reach out to us if you're planning on any turf projects. We also have nozzle upgrades. Irrigation is going to be converting to drip. And we also have rebates available residential and large landscapes or commercial HOA for smart controllers. Indoor for commercial, we do have a toilet rebate available. And then, as I mentioned a little earlier, kind of the programs that we offer are the simplified audits, conservation reviews. We do try to host workshops throughout the year. And then just earlier this year, we hosted a QUEL certification, which is a qualified water efficient landscaper certification course for local landscaping companies that could come to. It was 4 sessions over the course of 1 month. At the end, a test was offered, and they had an opportunity to receive that certification as a qualified water efficient landscaper. So this was the first time we had done that in a few years, but we're planning on continuing to host that annually for landscapers within our service area. Regulatory impacts, I'm going to keep it high level just on, there is more than just AB 1572. So the other big one, as Scott mentioned, is SB 606, or the Urban Water Use Efficiency Standards, making conservation a California way of life, water use objective. It's had lots of names. And that's essentially the state calculating a water budget for each water supplier. So each water supplier is going to be responsible for meeting that target that the state sets for each water supplier. And then most recently, AB 1572, the prohibition on the irrigation of NFT with potable water. So as I mentioned, for the conservation as a California way of life, this is the formula that the state has come up with to calculate our water use objective or target. So they're just looking at the indoor use, outdoor residential use, dedicated irrigation meter water budgets, our water loss, and also they do allow for some variances. I guess similar to ours, so it's not on a per standard basis. They're just going to give us one large target, and that's our goal to meet. We don't have to meet each one of these individually. Currently, looking out, the first report was due earlier this year. We met that standard by they're lowering each of these parts every few years over the next 15 years. I believe by 2040, we're estimated to have to reduce by about 10%. So not too bad. There's one big caveat that the state is planning to provide us dedicated irrigation meter mapping later this year. And depending on what that looks like, it could have a big impact. So we'll anxiously awaiting what the state has put together there. Non-functional turf, we're going to go into a lot more detail, of course, throughout the day. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. First, I know, so non-functional turf is this new term everybody's been throwing out, or kind of came out of the executive order here in California in the last couple of years. So it is a new term, but I kind of want to stress that it's not necessarily a new concept. As I mentioned, our rebate program, we've removed almost 26 million square feet of turf over the last not even 20 years. And a big part of that is a lot of turf that's come out of HOAs and large landscapes, obviously. And so those conversations that those HOAs had, I would argue all that turf that's come out was because the HOA identified it as not being functional, and that's why they were willing to remove it. So I just try to keep that frame of reference, that it's not an entirely new thing, and try to keep that in the discussion of just what turf would we maybe be looking to remove anyways. And that may be a good place to start those discussions. The landscape ordinance, we are currently looking to update it. And we're including NFT, non-functional turf, as new definitions. These are the definitions that we have proposed as of today. We're hoping to go to a board to get something approved by the end of the fiscal year, so by the end of June. Currently, we're just including it in the ordinance, so we have a tool to not allow any more to go in. So we don't want to approve a development with NFT in the plans, it get built, and then in 2 years tell them this is NFT, you have to take it out. So the primary purpose of what we're putting in the ordinance right now is to prevent NFT from being built. We will, by January 1st, 2027, have to adopt something that puts in that actual prohibition on the irrigation of NFT. But that's not, we're not there yet. So that'll be our next step. So that's that. And that's all I had. I just want to say thank you again for being here today. If it's not too hot, feel free during lunch to walk up. We just completed the construction of this beautiful demonstration garden about a year ago. So it's built it or filled in quite nicely over the last year. It's up at the corner of the roundabout at our other building just up the hill. And then also we have, if you don't already, we have a great social media team that puts out a lot of great informative videos throughout the course of the year So I'd encourage you to scan the QR code and give them a follow also. So I'll leave it there.